Today I have a watch for you that I guarantee you will absolutely love or hate. It could go either way. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Alton. I hope you had a great Christmas or whatever you celebrated in December. Happy New Year, or for those of you about to celebrate another new year, Happy New Year to you. Welcome back to our very first video of 2022. If you don't count the giveaway was a fantastic time. Thank you to Van Banner Watches for passing along that watch. It is now in the hands of its new owner, and he is enjoying it quite a bit. But we are not here to talk about Van Banner. We are here to talk about this watch today. So this watch before us today is the San Martin Field 38mm. Now that's not what they call it. They call it the San Martin New 2021 Pilot 38mm Vintage Military Enthusiast Sapphire NH35 Automatic Mechanical Men's Watches NATO Strap 20 bar Lume. They could do better. What I'd like to do is get into the specifications of the watch, take a little look at it, the pros, the cons, and then of course my final thoughts in the summary. So this is the San Martin model SN031-G. It's got an NH35 automatic mechanical movement. You should know that movement by now. It's hacking and hand winding, and these days I'm finding they're actually fairly accurate as well. It's 316L solid stainless steel for the case. It's 38mm in diameter, but it actually wears a little bigger than that. So if you have a larger wrist, and I do have an 8-inch wrist, please stick with me because I think you might actually find this interesting. It has a lug-to-lug of 47.5mm, a thickness of 14mm, a bandwidth of 20mm. It has a sapphire crystal. I believe it's a single domed sapphire crystal, which provides lots of distortion. It has air coating on the underside. It comes in 3 dial colors: matte black, matte gray, matte yellow, and let me tell you, you really have to dig through the back catalog to find this watch on their website. It has a screw-down crown, it has a screw-down case back, and because of that, it is actually 20 bar, or 200 meters water resistant, which I think is absolutely fantastic in a field watch. I mean, sorry, pilot's watch, because that's what they call it. It comes on a nylon 2-piece strap. They call it a NATO strap, but it isn't a NATO strap. It's a 2-piece nylon strap, and the strap width on that is 20mm, as we said. And of course, it has a stainless steel buckle to go along with it, and it weighs in around 100 grams. Okay, before we take a closer look at the watch itself, I thought you might want to see what it comes in. This is my first San Martin. It comes in this plastic case, screws on, lots of foam. Okay, so inside this package, I got a NATO strap. Unsigned, not too remarkable, but it looks decent. I have warranty card and some spring bars and some other information. And it all comes in this really shockproof kind of inside thing. So there you go. Great job, San Martin. Taking a closer look at the dial, you can see that I have opted for the gray dial, which can actually change colors from a pretty light gray to almost a black, which is really neat. Very, very dynamic. A little bit of texture to it. It's a matte dial with, of course, these tan indices. You might call it photina, you might call it tan, you might even call it yellow. Whatever you call it, I think it looks good. The hour hand and minute hand and seconds hand are in a lighter color, which is going to be a con for me, showing up later at the end of the video. But I have to say, in person, it isn't as noticeable or as bothersome, but it really stands out here on these studio lights, that is for sure. I love the choice to put a red tip on that seconds hand just past the lollipop, which looks great. Now, of course, this is a California dial, so you have to like that style in order to like this watch. Unimatic has other offerings, normally with just circles. I think they may have a version with numerals. I'm not 100% sure of that. But in this version, all you get right now is this. Now, the case shape is definitely a unique case shape. It doesn't curve down towards your wrist as we often like to see, but it actually curves away. And you think that it might not work, but it actually works pretty well. At least it does for me. Your mileage may vary. I'll show you a wrist shot in a minute. The brushing and the finishing on the case is excellent. Absolutely fantastic for the price that I paid for this watch. Absolutely incredible. I would have to say it's right up there with anything else that I have in my collection at many, many more times the price. Flipping around to the back, you see a pretty boring case back, and I am a-okay with it. I think there's still a sticker on there, and that's fine with me. I usually try to keep my stickers on as long as I can, but you can see that the finishing extends to the back of the watch, and that's really, really nice. It's got a nice big crown with, of course, a $sign on there. I guess the San Martin $sign. Who knows? It's an S. Looks like a $sign to me. Evokes Richie Rich in my mind. The sapphire crystal, of course, is a beautiful single dome sapphire crystal with the air coating. And that means it's going to be lots of distortion. Check out that distortion. It's a lot of fun, though. They could have gone for a double domed sapphire crystal, but I would have increased the price quite a bit more. And I really like it. I wouldn't change a thing. You might notice, maybe not on first glance, but as you get closer, there is a railroad chapter ring around the outside, which means you can set the minute accurately, and that means that it's easy to tell the time at a glance. On camera here, the yellow indices sort of pop out and that minute track disappears, but in real life, they blend in together a little bit better. I love the choice to do it in black. It just adds a subtle hint of detail that you don't at first even notice, but of course is functional and looks good. Well, let's talk about the strap for a second. It's a pretty nice strap. They say it's a NATO, but it's a two-piece nylon strap with quick release and a pretty hefty buckle. Lots of great stitching everywhere. Extremely quality made. Brushing you can see on the keepers. Actually, the buckle is more interesting than the case itself because the case is very angular, as you can see. No beveled edges that I can tell, except, of course, where this rises up to meet the dial and the glass, the crystal. It almost doesn't fit the watch, though, in my opinion. It's just a little too much, in my opinion. It's just a little too fancy, detailed, whatever you want to say. It just doesn't work for me. But there's a bigger problem to this strap, and you'll see it when I put it on my wrist. Okay, here it is on my 8-inch wrist, and it looks pretty good, right? Nice quality strap. But when I turn it over, you'll see a problem. It's on the second last hole, and it barely fits under that first keeper. And that second keeper is just kind of floating there in the middle of nowhere, doing nothing. Now, the other question you probably have is, what does this look like? Because the lugs don't curve down. What does it look like from this perspective? You can see that it curves up. It definitely looks weird. If you want to stare at your watch like this, it is going to look weird. But when you straighten your wrist, you see it comes back down. Now, I'm going to put on a different strap, the one I've been wearing it on this whole time. I'm going to show you what the difference is with a thicker strap. Okay, I've gone ahead and taken it off of the strap that it came with. Didn't even bother trying the NATO because I just think it would look terrible on a NATO. And I have thrown it on this Horween strap that I got off Etsy. When I bought this strap, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but this is its permanent home. It looks so good here, and you can see that because the strap is thicker, it really sort of fills in that gap, gives it a better visual appeal. Now, this is what you see when you look at your watch, right? You don't look at your watch like this. But if that bugs you, and I know it will bug some people, then this is definitely not the watch for you. I do also want to mention how well everything is applied. When you look at it up close, everything is sharp, it's crisp, it's thick, and the lume on this is actually pretty great. I'll throw up a lume shot right here, and you can see that the lume for a field watch is exceptional. And another notable thing about this watch is with a screw-down crown, you have 200 meters of water resistance, which is really fantastic. I will say that one issue I'm having with this is that it does have a ghost date here. Boom. See, that's third position there, second, and first. First position, of course, you can wind it. Second position, you can change the date, but this doesn't have one. Screws down like butter. Just fantastic. So let's talk about the pros of this watch to begin with. First of all, it's a very unique design. You are not going to find anyone else out there wearing this on their wrist. I guarantee you that. It is a unique design, kinda. You see, it is actually an homage to a Unimatic U2 watch. So Unimatic is a micro brand or perhaps a boutique brand, depending on how you want to categorize that. The point is there's not a lot of the original design out there. In fact, it's discontinued right now on the website. You can't find this version, although I know you can find it all over the place if you're really looking. The Unimatic version is several $100s more than this one, but it's still in the affordable range to the very lower end of the mid-tier. So it's sort of creeping up towards that $1,000 range where you'll find a lot of Hamiltons and Tissot's and whatnot. And Unimatic is a very interesting, sort of polarizing company. I think sometimes their designs are a little bit unique, but I think that's a pro for this. You're just not going to find anybody else wearing this watch on their wrist. The second pro is the fit and finish of this watch. It is just absolutely beautifully done. I know it's simple, the case is simple, it's all brushed everywhere, but the case is just so well done in that simplicity. Sometimes doing simple is harder than doing something that is complex. Trust me on that. And sometimes brushing is a lot harder to do than you think, to keep it uniform, to keep it going in just the right direction, to make sure the fit and finish is spot on, is more difficult than you'd think. This is my first San Martin watch. The second I've looked at, the first I've owned. And I have to say, these really are worth the premium. What you get with this is just absolutely fantastic. I will talk about this in a second, but I have to say, when I put this alongside my other watches, Alpina's, Christopher Ward, Hamilton, this watch looks right at home in terms of fit and finish. Which leads me to the third pro, and that is value. For $150 US, and I paid quite a bit less on a sale, I have to tell you, there are going to be very little better values out there for you than this one. Go ahead, check out AliExpress for what you get in this watch. And I'm not just talking about having a Japanese movement or sapphire crystal. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the whole package and how it is conceived and then produced is fantastic. So what are the cons? Well, let's begin with the most obvious for me, and that is that the hands don't match the rest of the dial. They're just far too light in comparison with all of the indices. Does it bother me? Maybe a little bit, but honestly, before I went to review this, it didn't bother me at all. But being a reviewer, I have to come up with some negatives, and that is one of them. Secondly, it has a ghost date. Ghost dates are slightly annoying, not a huge deal for me. It would have definitely shown a higher level of attention to detail if they had put a movement in this that didn't have a ghost date. But because it is an NH movement, an NH35 movement, when you unscrew the crown, when you pull it out, what you're going to find is there's a single pop for the date and nothing is going to happen. It's just going to spin freely. You have to pull it out a second time to stop the seconds hand from moving. And of course, all the way in, you can hand wind it. And then of course you can screw it down. So the hands don't match the rest of the dial. It does have a ghost date. So this is not a perfect watch. I think the other con for me is that it is a polarizing design. I mean, California dials in and of themselves are definitely polarizing. And to have a California dial mixed with a case that looks like this is just two polarizing things going on at the same time. But I have to say, with no credit at all to San Martin Unimatic. This is amazing. And I think the last con for me is that it's an homage, and there's a lot of people who are not going to appreciate that this is an homage, especially when you can spend probably about $400, $500 more and find the real deal, depending on how the secondary market goes and if you can find one that is brand new. But it is an homage, and a lot of people have trouble with homages. So what are my final thoughts about this watch in front of us today? Well, I would say that the San Martin SN031 is for those who want a budget field watch that does not feel budget in any way. But you have to appreciate the design choices, and you have to be comfortable with homage watches. I think, barring those two caveats, if you like the design and you're okay with an homage, you are going to love this watch for very little money. I can't think of too many better values out there right now on AliExpress or anywhere else. So if you like it, go ahead and pick one up. I purchased this with my own money, so I'm not being paid for this endorsement in any way. I just really, really dig this watch, and I think many of you will as well. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you're still here with me, I'd like to take the time to ask you to like and subscribe if you want to. I can't tell you what to do. I'm not your dad.